Hey there, how you guys doing? I was recently asked to come and present at a real estate meetup, which are always fun for me. I look forward to talking to rooms of new real estate investors. If you have a real estate meetup that you think might benefit from a buy and hold guy, one rental at a time, please reach out to me. Let me know. We might be able to work something out because I really do have a good time doing this. And what I thought I would do is just give you a sample. This is actually a slide deck I gave at the most recent meetup here in California, and I thought I would share it with you. So it really starts off with the premise of how does somebody start and succeed on this thing that we call the real estate journey, right? How do you go from zero to ultimately financial independence or financial freedom or whatever that is for you? So I just thought I'd walk through the slide deck, record it, and allow you to kind of sit in as a virtual observer, a fly on the wall, if you will, to the meetup I was at the other day. And let me know if you have any questions. Go ahead and hit subscribe as I do this all for you. Hit that like button, and again, don't forget about subscriber questions. Go ahead and leave a comment below, and I'll look to answer it in the next couple of days. All right, let's get started. So, all of these meetups, a lot of times I get invited to groups that I don't know, anyone, maybe just the host. Maybe there was a prep call or something, but always start with kind of our journey, our story. I did, I did share. I'm sharing the theme a lot more about, getting to 4 rentals. Why is that a good thing? I think when you talk about financial independence, it gets a lot of smiles and head nods and things like that, but it it can seem too big or too far away. Now I really spend my time trying to get people focused on just getting to 4, right? If you can get to 4, I think your financial future is changed for the better, even if you don't go any further. So we'll talk about that. We'll definitely talk about the keys to starting out. This is often a hot topic, right? Because I have my opinions on keys when starting out, so I thought I would share those. Private capital is a hot topic. So in this particular presentation, I covered both private market or private capital sessions. We did a bunch of that in like 2010 through 14, and then again starting in 2018. So I thought I would share with you what we did there. I will talk about making chunk money. This is a set of activities that lead to a relatively quick exit. Typically today's market, it's called wholesaling. Back in '08, it was called flipping. And all of these, as you will see during this talk, that's active income, right? It's another form of a job. If you are already a busy professional, and you probably are if you're watching my channel, making chunk money is sexy, kind of looks good on the gram and all of that, but it's not for us, right? We're buy and hold. We're putting one brick in the wall at a time, and we just know what we're going for. We'll talk about long-term wealth because I think there's a huge difference between, having a good year being a wholesaler and being a buy and hold landlord for over a decade, right? One's a job, one doesn't have really cycles, if you will, and then one leads to true wealth. I will highlight some videos. I've been lucky enough to interview some great guests, and I recommend all of them. But at this particular event, I selected 10, and we'll talk about those. And then, something I'm starting to talk about recently is, what have I learned on this path to financial freedom? So that's what we're going to talk about. It'll probably take about a half hour or so, but let's get started. I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you to do me a favor. If you haven't already, pause the video now and go to Amazon and buy the book, right? One rental at a time. It's kind of our detailed story. It goes through the 4 phases of a business cycle or a real estate cycle. It talks about, how we rode the wave up, how we exited before the crash, what we did at the top, which was very cool for us, what we did during the crash, how we prospered, and then what we did when it returned. So lots of lessons learned there because markets repeat themselves. So I think those lessons learned will benefit you. And then we give you a lot more detail about deals we've done and other keys to success, and just lots of wisdom in there. It's not a hard read. I've been told it's about 2.5 hours, and it's available on Amazon. Just search my name, Michael Zuber. It will come up. It's available in Kindle and paperback. So I'd appreciate that. It just shows support for this channel. It's really the only thing I have out there that's not free. So it's a cheap book, $14.99 or $9.99. So really inexpensive. So do me a favor, order your book. So here's our story, right? We were both full-time employees, and we's important to me. My partner Olivia is with me side by side. You'll see throughout this presentation. We were buy and hold landlords, never did any flipping until after we retired. We lived in the Bay Area. When we say we were busy, it's often good to put it in context. I traveled over 100,000 miles a year on airplanes. I spent 100 nights a year away in hotels. And when you add in travel and all the other stuff that goes along with a traveling salesman or sales executive, it's easily over 80 hours a week and many hours over 100. So, and we had we're raising a child, and we were busy, right? It's not like we were sitting on the couch or anything. So, if we can do it, really anybody can. The other thing that's interesting that needs to be appreciated is we chose to invest in a market that was 2.5 hours away. We did that. Olivia had a contact or two, but in essence, we knew no one, right? We didn't have an in, we didn't have a realtor, we didn't have a lender. We frankly had never been to Fresno. I think we may have driven through it on the way to Yosemite one time. But again, we picked a market that we didn't know anything. So, we built all our knowledge from the ground up. The other thing that's important is kind of where we started. We get asked that question. So we started with $40,000. Excuse me. That's probably more than some. We're not, we understand. But really, most of the people watching this, have more than we started with. So again, if we can take $40,000 and let time go by and inflation go by and leverage market cycles correctly, which is a big thing that we talk about in the book, is how to let market cycles help you. Anybody can do it. The other thing, we just didn't know any better. We bought everything out of the MLS, which is the multiple listing service. And, think realtor.com, think Redfin. Again, we had no access. We had nobody giving us pocket leads. We weren't buying on the courthouse steps. We had no system. We didn't have a mentor. We just put our head down and, kept trying to move forward. And, sometimes it just takes grit and grind and repetition and focus. We did leverage the market cycle. We took full advantage. Looking back on it, we did it. We did it really well. We did it so well, it's frankly lucky that we did. Near the peak of the market, we were sitting with 7 or 8 properties. We sold all of them, which wasn't really a sale. It was an exchange. So we did a 1031 exchange, take all this equity, moved it into apartment buildings. Market crashes, our apartments rents go up, occupancy goes up. So we're, maybe our net worth goes down, but income goes up. We did the exchanges. We didn't pay the tax man. We didn't get hurt. Everything was paid for. It was awesome. Crash happens. Bank turn off. We start leveraging hard money and private money. And, thankfully we bought every deal we could, except one little building that we ended up having to give to a friend that I'm still a little bitter on, if you can't tell. But other than that one transaction, we got everything done, and really happy to say that. I retired or left full-time employment February of last year, and Olivia has been out for about 5 years now. We did self-publish that book that you saw earlier. That was something that I frankly never knew we were going to do. It sort of just started with me filling my day and kind of reliving what we went through, and ultimately, through help from editors and others, it became this real book, and provides value and is an easy read. And really the reason we created it, or why I spent all that time, was I wanted to create belief. I wanted new investors and full-time employees to believe. And near as I can tell, with the 5-star reviews, it's hitting the mark. And that's a big deal for both of us. We're very glad that sharing our story is creating belief in others. Another one is this YouTube channel. It's probably where you found this video. Again, everything we do is called one rental at a time. That's how we did it. We're talking a lot to full-time employees. We don't want you to get, think of some crazy system or all of that. If you just do one rental at a time, you will be successful. We did start after we retired, right? So again, this is not why we were both full-time employees, but after we retired, buying distressed, what I now call slumlord properties, that frankly should be boarded up. And then we turn those into pride of ownerships by spending 40, 50, $60,000. These are technically flips, but really it's something that's, hits us at our core because we're turning these just deplorable buildings and units into pride of ownership units, and that's fun. Yes, and yes, there's some profit in it, and we take it, but it really fills a different part for us. Doing that, upgrading the quality of rental units. And then finally, we'll talk about this more. We did, start raising private capital this year because we wanted to have some partners and be able to take on deals that we found. Instead of only doing 3 or 4 at a time, we wanted the flexibility to do more if we wanted. So 4 rentals at a time. This is a message I'm talking about because, again, I think when you talk about financial independence, it's one of those topics that people smile about. They'll maybe even come out to an event, but then they will go, well, that's not me, or they don't know me, or that's not us, or we can't do it, or just all those excuses start. So we both just talk about getting to 4 units or 4 rentals actually. You could do that 1 a year for 4 years. You can do that 1 every 6 months, whatever makes sense for you. And then you could stop, right? If you just get to 4, I fundamentally believe your future is much brighter, and you have options, right? You can pay them off, you can refi them, you can sell them, whatever you'd like in 20 or 30 years. The first 4 rentals are easy because they're Fannie Freddie financed. You get the best rates, and they again are just anybody can get those for 4 loans, assuming you have a job and some savings and the like. I believe with appreciation, time and rent increases and tenants paying off your asset, that you're going to have, you will absolutely have an increased net worth and have choices when you get to the end of retirement or whatnot. Think about it. In 20 or 30 years, you could maybe it's 25 years and none of them are paid off, but you could sell one, pay off the other 3. You could refi one, probably pay off the other 3. But in the end, it gives you options, and that's a nice place to be. And then when you get to 4, the big deal about getting to 4 rentals is you'll know if this business is for you. If you get to 4 and stop, totally okay. But if you get to 4 and you decide that, this is for me, then you'll go to 10, and then life gets really interesting. So some keys when starting out: please, please, please don't bet on appreciation. Don't do negative cash flow. Don't say things like, well, appreciation will bail me out. Don't put appreciation in any of your calculations. I know appreciation happens. I know inflation is real. I know all those things, but I don't want to count on it. I lived through the '08 crash. I saw what a bad market can do to someone's net worth, and if you're betting on appreciation and you have all these, what I call alligators, it's pretty easy to give up and, let the bank take them back. So please don't calculate, don't bet on, don't talk about appreciation. If it happens, be thankful, cash the check, but let's not use it as part of our evaluation. You always have to conservatively finance if you're following my model. I'm not the maximum leverage person. If a bank will loan you 80% of the purchase and you're buying a rental and it's kind of close for cash flow, I'm going to tell you to put 30% down instead of 20. I might even tell you to put 35% down. Right? If you have a full-time job and you're already busy, family responsibilities, you want these to be easy rentals. So the ability to have a lot of cushion is a good thing. So I've always conservatively financed, and then when bad markets happen, it doesn't matter, right? Your net worth goes down or whatever, but the cash flow is still there, and that's what you're playing for, right? You need to think about return on time instead of ROI, right? Especially if you're a busy professional. All right, if you have 1 extra hour a week to look at real estate, you can't buy lots of investments, right? I had a friend of mine looking at a triple net building and a 6-unit apartment building. For this conversation, pretend they're the same price, but the return was 3 times higher, or the expected return, I should say, was 3 times higher on the 6-unit apartment building. The reason it was higher is because you were going to go in and raise rents because the rents were low. So play this out. Triple net building, he does nothing and he makes $500 a month. 6-unit apartment building, he's going to have to go in and raise rents, at least lose half, if not all of the tenants, then do repairs, then, fight evictions for those that don't leave, right? So even if the return on that's $1,000 or $1,500, the expected return, I could promise you he can't do justice to the 6-unit building because he doesn't have the time, right? It takes a lot to turn a building and he just doesn't have time. So please think about return on time. And sometimes, going after something that's a little less time consuming is the right answer if your constraint is time. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's been my logo for a while, no alligators. Negative cash flow, whatever you want to call it. Don't buy them, don't create them. I say create them because if you read the book, you'll hear about a property that I bought or we bought that was positive cash flow and then we refinanced it and suddenly it wasn't. That was 100% my mistake. Again, because I didn't know any better. I didn't even think, right? The bank said they'd give me X. I took X. I didn't even do the math. And you know what? You got to do the math in this business. And sometimes you need to learn the hard way. I've created a saying called CRAP, and that's CRAP, all capital letters. So I'm not swearing at you. It stands for cash rich, asset poor. And I'm here to tell you being cash rich, stocks, cash, whatever you want to call it, not a great way to live. Inflation's going to eat at your cash. Excuse me. Stock market's going to do what it does. It goes up, it goes down. If it goes down at the wrong time, it's really painful. So just not the way to live. I don't think you can save your way to retirement, put away 3% every paycheck or whatever it is. When there's inflation and unexpected events and, cash is just so easy to be, just easy to spend, right? If you have all this cash and you get a friend or whatever that's, needs X, you're the person everybody comes to. But if you're cash poor, or at least, not cash rich, people go elsewhere. So I just don't think you can save your way to retirement. Getting to 4 conservatively financed rentals should be your goal. If you want to go past 4, that's great. Your next goal will be 10. But let's just talk about getting to 4. I think as a buy and hold investor, you should be thinking in decades, not months, not years, but decades, preferably with an S, right? So not only 10 years, but maybe 20 years, if not forever. And then again, focus on what you do well. For me, that meant securing capital and managing and finding deals, right? And then Olivia was helping me manage teams and the books and whatnot. So definitely segregation of duty, definitely have your significant other on the same page. It's vital. So private capital, we've done it twice. So if we paint the picture between 2010 and 14, this is when the financial crisis was going on. Savings rate in the U.S. actually went up, which it hadn't done in years. But banks stopped investing or stopped lending to real estate investors because, of course, we were the cause of the crash. So no bank wanted to invest to real estate investors, even though that was the best time to invest because everything was on sale. It was one of those interesting catch-22s. So literally deals were everywhere. Everywhere you looked in the MLS, there was a deal. I remember looking at it going, I can't believe it. They're selling this for land value. I just can't believe it. But everyone was scared. People were saving money. And then we realized that people were having, significant money and earning less than 1%. So we talked and we wanted to say that we could offer 10%, right? We could offer 10% interest only and still cash flow. So it allowed us to take our, capital and reuse it over and over and over again. So we'd buy a distressed asset, secure a note and a trust deed at the purchase price. We would then repair or do the make ready, and then we'd keep it as a cash flowing rental. So it's been pretty good. It's actually, we just recently refied out of a bunch of those loans because, again, the banks didn't really invest to lenders who had a lot of real estate until the last year or so. So This is literally like in the last 4 or 5 months, we've refinanced out of some 10% loans. So it's pretty cool. We did just start doing some more because we started flipping, right? We don't have full-time jobs now, so we can be on the hunt for great discounted deals. So same kind of model. We like to take care of our investors. We buy distressed assets for cash. We then refinance the purchase price again. So we put a 6 and 20 on. What that means is we pay our private investors 6%, and then we give them a 20% equity kicker when the property is sold. But again, just like before, we fund the repair costs. A lot of private money out there, or investors out there, want to borrow everything, so they have no skin in the game. I know I wouldn't invest in that, so we don't do that. Then we lease at market rent, and then today we sell it via what we call pride of ownership, right, to a new landlord. And this is a big deal, right? A lot of the new landlords that I'm working with don't have time to do the repairs, and they want to buy fully leased, right? This is our version of turnkey. We're doing somewhere between 10 and 15 a year. If you're looking to build quality rentals portfolio, let us help you. We only focus on Fresno, obviously. But again, if you're looking for something maybe you can drive to if you're in California, or you're looking for some quality rental units, take a look. I do some walkthroughs all over our channel, and we have a couple of exciting properties coming up. And then, of course, when we sell them, we pay off our private investor, who loaned us the purchase price, and they get the 20% of the profit. To date, all of our private investors have been seeing a great return. In fact, if you do the math and annualize their returns, they've been north of 20%. And then we have averaged about 100% on our money. So making chunk money, there's really sort of two ways to do it that are often talked about. Today's world is wholesaling. Back in 2008, it was flipping. I don't recommend that busy professionals, right, full-time employees, even look at this stuff. But again, given that you see them on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, and people talk about this or that at parties, we should at least acknowledge them. The real key to chunk money is being the middleman, or someone between a motivated seller and a cash buyer. That's it. That's what you do. After interviewing several successful wholesalers, and you can find them on my interview channel on YouTube, one rental at a time. Really, what the key is consistency of execution. Right? You have to send on average 6 mailers to someone before you can potentially get a response. And these mailers aren't cheap. Some of these people are doing 10,000 mailers a week. So just realize that there's a lot out there. And again, the whole goal is to find a motivated seller, so you can figure out a discount and ultimately put a cash buyer in place. So again, it's a way to go. If you're just starting out, don't have any money, making chunk money is awesome. I've interviewed several wholesalers on this channel who make $1 million a year in wholesale fees. So it can be done. It's a very lucrative business when you get good at it. However, long-term wealth, making chunk money is fun, exciting. It kind of feels good probably to cash those checks, but it's nothing but a job. And for some of them, it's just a high-paying job. You're getting taxed at active income. You're getting 50% hits, and that kind of gets painful. I can't imagine writing those big checks to the IRS. And please write the checks, otherwise you go to jail, and that's no fun. I think making chunk money can change your current situation, right? If you can't afford rent, or you need a new car or whatever, I think making chunk money can help you. But it's not going to make you wealthy. I believe if you really get good at making chunk money, you should follow a philosophy that's something like, flip 1, keep 1. Or flip 3, wholesale 3, keep 1. The whole key is you need to start keeping some of these, in my opinion. Wealth is created by owning and controlling assets, and if those assets produce cash flow and in excess of expenses, you win, right? That's how you win this game. Being a landlord via one rental at a time philosophy is the path to wealth. And also allows you to create legacy and generational wealth, and all of those things. So chunk money is fun, probably looks good in the bank account or whatever. It's highly taxed, it's short term, it fluctuates with the market, and it is a job. It is a stressful job. And you know what? That's not for everybody. So sometimes people ask what I'm doing today. It's pretty simple. I buy junk properties, or I buy owner finance properties that could be pretty nice. Again, I buy slumlord junk properties for cash, but I'll buy any owner finance deal, or almost any, right? If the seller is going to be, you know, um, easy to work with, we'll get the deal done. We like owner finance deals. We like to help people that want to get out and don't have the tax hit, or at least as big a tax hit. So it's pretty interesting. We pay cash for 90% unless it's owner finance. So about 1 in 10 deals are owner financed. We close usually in 15 days, but again, we'll close whatever the seller needs. And again, we like owner finance deals, and we'll do whatever we can because we can control the down payment, interest rates, and ultimately that means the payment. Some interviews I think you should watch. I think interview number 28 on my channel is really great because it's an investor who was stuck with analysis paralysis, and we sort of broke that down and gave them some specific work to do. Number 25, out of state investor, right? Focus on out of state. So there was a lot of good conversation there. This one is his name's Bo. He was actually the host of the event that this presentation came from. So he's a hard money lender. A lot of great questions and talk there. There was one from a contractor, which was a lot of fun. Truck in a toolbox, and then starts a $200 million business. It was an awesome interview. This one's particularly fun. This was a young lady who'd been in the business 31 years, spent 6 months a year in Belize, was definitely on the way, out of the business, private lender, all of that. But just the amount of stories she had from being a buy and hold investor for 31 years. I loved this interview. I'd love to call her back and do another one. Number 4, that was an awesome one. Talk about an investor going all in, has a 6-month dry spell and gets credit card debt and, figures it out and, ultimately closes last year getting 25 units as a rental. So really happy for him. Flipping couches to flipping over 140 houses. This was a great story. A semi-professional, I guess it'd be called semi, or I guess AAA baseball player who was flipping couches and at some point decided that had to focus on something else other than his baseball career, and started flipping houses. And to see what he was able to do from one year to the next should give us all hope. He's done a great business. He does great work. He's focused on one city, and he's just crushing it. And to see what he's done is pretty awesome. This one was fun. Never too late to start. This was from an orthodontist who I don't believe started until his 50s. And really should give all of us hope that we can get started, even though maybe it's a little late in our we're not 20 anymore, right? It's okay, right? This business is something you can get into. This one was fun. Investing in 3 different states. I've never done it. I can only imagine what it's like to invest in 3 different states. So this was a fun interview for me to do. And then the one with couples. I'd like to interview more couples, frankly. That would be interesting. But this couples interview was awesome. Another thing about these interviews, if you happen to be watching this and you have an interesting real estate story, reach out. I'd love to do more interviews. Also, if you have people in your network that should be interviewed because they have a great story, they've been doing it for a while, and let's make an introduction. Send me an email, copy them, and let's see if you can't make a connection. I'd love to do one of these interviews a day. I just love talking to people, talking about real estate and all of that. And then lastly, if you know anybody that runs a podcast, I would love to share my story with more and more people, right? So if you happen to run a podcast or maybe you're starting one, let me know. I'd love to come on and tell you the one rental at a time story. So 10 things I've learned about financial freedom. It doesn't have to take 40 years. I think I've read a lot of books here recently talking about doing, save a little bit every month and be conservative, and 40 years from now, life will be good. Well, if you're a real estate investor and you do the work and you make the executions, it doesn't have to take 40 years. It took us about 15 years. I think this whole 401k is the only answer, is doing everyone a disservice. I think the 401k is great. I think company matching is great. I'm just here to believe that there's another way to do it, and maybe you can do them both. But I just think it's wrong to say the 401k is the only way. Teamwork. You need first and foremost buy-in from your significant other. You need that for sure. And then when you're working full time, you're going to need to build a team: property managers, repairmen, tax accountants, realtors, all that stuff. Here's a big one for me. It's not about how much income you make. It's just not. It's about how much you keep, right? What do you net? And we all need to get more comfortable sacrificing. We need to understand the difference between need and want. Our needs are often met with half our income, but we have a whole lot of wants, and it's the wants that are keeping us broke. Again, I've said it before, but I'll say it again: conservative finance, I am not the high leverage guy. Just because a bank's going to give me an 80% loan doesn't mean I'm taking it. I love having others buy my assets, right? I might put the first 25% down, but if somebody else pays the other 75, I smile all the way to the bank. I like it when inflation is my friend. For the first 30 years of my life, inflation was my enemy, right? It depreciated the value of the dollar. It made everything else more expensive. But you know what? As a landlord, inflation helps raise the value of my building. Inflation increases the rent that I get to charge. So inflation helps me lots of different ways, which is a good thing. Also, I like it when the IRS helps me. I talked earlier about one of our big jumps was when we did 1031 exchanges and we went from some houses to apartment buildings. You can also, if you live in areas with high variability in housing, you could buy a house, fix it up, live in it for 2 years. So you got to suffer a little bit through the repairs and remodel. But you can also sell and do that and make 250 grand tax free. And if you're a couple, up to 500 grand. There's several people I've interviewed over the year that have done this 3 or 4 times. Now, they're often very stressed out because I can only imagine living in a constantly remodeled state. But it's possible. You can do it. I believe your net worth is tied to your net work. This sort of has 2 sides of the coin. First off, if you look around at your 5 closest friends that you spend time with, you'll probably get a feel for what your net worth is. But more importantly, in this business, real estate's a people business. So please, take the goal of meeting more and more people. Your net worth will grow up or go up. And then lastly, if I can do it, right, I am certainly not the smartest person in any room. I'm not bright. But again, I have the ability to focus and execute and move forward. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So core beliefs. Financial freedom starts with playing good defense, right? It's not about revenue or income or scoring. It's about playing good defense, right? You need to sacrifice. You need to understand the difference between a need and a want. Get your needs done. Handle your needs, but let's start controlling some of our wants. Live where you want, invest where the numbers make sense, right? We live in the Silicon Valley and love it, and probably not going anywhere, but we invest where the numbers make sense. I did an interview with a gentleman today who lives in a penthouse in Tampa, 2-story penthouse, gorgeous views, all glass, but he invests in mobile homes, right? So again, live where you want, but invest where the numbers make sense. Being cash rich, asset poor is not the way to live. I don't believe it's going to lead to the happy retirement that some of us think it will. I believe the thing you should be shooting for, which is the opposite of crap, is asset rich, cash happy, right? Or ARCH. If you're ARCH, meaning asset rich, cash happy, you let inflation, you have tax advantages, you have depreciation, you have tenants paying for your asset. It's the thing to do. If you happen to be stuck or you're just starting out, the thing to focus on early is your acquisition requirement. What am I going to buy, right? And why? Do I need $200 minimum per door? Well, great. The first time you see one, buy it, right? There's all deals. If you look at it hard enough, you can find issues and all of that. And that's really what keeps people stuck in analysis paralysis is not knowing why they want to buy. Here's one for you. Real estate will test you. It will test you over and over again. I believe that real estate investing is the path to financial freedom for most of us, but unfortunately it tests us for 10 years and then we give up, right? We give up at like year 7 or year 8, right before it was going to get good. Couples need to be committed 100% together. It says here, tell the Norris Drive story. I'll try to tell it briefly. Basically, we spent a year looking for something. We found something finally in Fresno that made sense. We bought it. We did everything right. Credit checks, reference checks, all this stuff. But unfortunately, the couple we moved in ended up separating and ultimately getting divorced. They separated 2 weeks after moving into our place, and it went downhill from there, right? The husband who stayed behind never paid rent, turned to alcohol. We had to evict him, and basically we bought our first rental. We got a deposit in first month's rent, and then we saw no money for 5 months. And then we had to spend 15 grand repairing it. It was not a good story. Every time I tell that story, I tell the room that 98% of the people in that room would have stopped investing. But again, because Olivia and I were on the same page, we kept going. Thankfully, now that we've had thousands of tenants, we only have 2 stories like that. But it's unfortunate that it had to happen on our first one. Without going into a long story, we use the affordability index to tell us when to get in and get out of different assets. And if you read the book, this will be a big deal because it saved us in 2008. We couldn't, buying that 9th house would have been a silly mistake and probably ruined us. Instead, we did 1031 exchanges and got out of the housing market and moved into the apartment market and started buying things 5 units and above, which was awesome. I do believe there's 3 quality differences out there. The 2 extremes, slumlord, can't live in, to pride of ownership. And then there's something called cheap properties, right? Kind of discounted, add value kind of stuff. I could tell you as a busy professional, buying the cheap stuff is often the wrong thing to do because it consumes too much cash. And I've done plenty of videos on my channel about that, so take a look. And then lastly, real estate's a people business, right? Grow your network, meet more people, do what you say you're going to do, be a good person, and you'll have a lot of success. So do me a favor. If you like what you're seeing here, follow me, right? I always talk about the one rental at a time story. I post basically 4 different things on YouTube. I do interviews, which I'm considering this to be an interview. I do something called subscriber questions, which is a lot of fun. If you have a question you'd like to ask, just pull up any video and leave a comment and say subscriber question or question, and I'll do my best to create a video for you. I do something called Real Talk, which is basically a topic of the day, something that bugs me usually in the Wall Street Journal or Fortune or CNBC. And then lastly, we get out to Fresno quite frequently and we do walkthroughs of properties. Again, I've talked about the book earlier. Please buy it. It is our story. We wrote it to, create belief and inspiration and give you kind of words of wisdom. But when you do, please leave a 5-star review. It may not seem like a lot, but as a self-published author, the 5-star reviews are a big deal. It's a self-published author, it's hard, right? The more self-published views or 5-star reviews we get, the better chance I have of showing up somewhere on the Amazon, rankings. And again, there's the book, right? So one rental at a time. Just go to Amazon.com, type in Michael Zuber, and the book will show up, and just hit purchase. And you know what? Buy one or buy 2, right? Give one away. So in the end, I just want to thank you for watching this. What you're watching here is something I'm pretty proud of. A lot of people who have bought the book have taken the time to send me a selfie. And as you can see there, some of these are teams, and they've done some pretty special things. So in the end, I want to thank you for listening to this, and we'll just let this roll by, and we'll call it the end. All right. Have a great day.